But yes, Andrew, I mean, what's your general view on the regulatory environment right now?
Well, one grey area that immediately springs to mind, and this is across Europe or the UK or pretty much wherever you happen to be, is if it all goes wrong, you lose your signal.
Well, if it all goes wrong, you get bailed out by the government.
Well, as an end user, you are making a payment if something happens. It doesn't work. Who do you phone? Who are you going to call and say, I'm not sure that payment, I'm not sure that payment went through?
It can seem like, I mean, I can remember from the O2 Barclays TfL trial in London, I can remember very clearly that whatever you told customers, and customers there were given admirably clear instructions about who was providing the ticket, who was providing the... But whatever you said, it didn't make the slightest bit of difference because they always called O2.
Yeah.
Because it's above.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
the operators have to learn how to deal with that.
Well, they do, and all the participating parties will. And it's not so much, I mean, it is not who owns the customer, it's actually who does the customer think is responsible for the service they are buying. And I think the default is almost, okay, well, if we use O2, that will be the default. I'll phone up O2. And generally speaking, as a rule in life, you never want to phone the customer service in any telco, bank, or anybody. But that will be an opportunity, of course, for the person who's providing that service to build a relationship, so the customer care.
But you're suggesting that has to be regulated in some way?
Well, to build, I think the market needs, I'm just looking at the UK, the market will need to work out how it is, either service providers, banks, telcos, etc., will need to work out how they're going to do that so that customer experience is actually as good as it can be phoning a customer service department. The upside, of course, is that you, as the provider of that service, whoever you are, will of course develop a relationship with the customer. So you could potentially disintermediate the other parties. Doesn't bring back to regulation. In terms of regulation, we are, just speaking for the forum now, we are purely UK focused. I think we would like to see much closer cooperation between the players, and particularly if we're talking about payments between banks and telcos, actually, to present and to work with the regulators to work things out so there is a market that can flourish, i.e. less 1,000 flowers flourish, or wrong said. So we can the hand of regulation in principle, and if I come with a bit of political angle here, should be light enough to let things flourish, but strong enough to create confidence in the consumer that if it all goes wrong, it will be sorted out.
John, how do people perceive PayPal? I mean, customers know that, or customers must see that you're not Barclays or RBS or whatever. It's broadly a good thing at the moment, isn't it? I mean,
at the moment. So I think, on the whole liability and that whole side of things, the reason PayPal is the size we are and why we're growing so fast is we've never been scared to take a bit of risk in order to get where we need to go. So PayPal's philosophy has always been we let everybody in the gates, then we get rid of the bad guys. Generally, the banking industry's philosophy has been treat everybody as a bad guy, make sure they're okay, then let them in. And that's why we've grown so fast. So exactly the same in the mobile type of environment, all this other stuff. We're looking at this saying, well, no one knows what's going to happen. No one knows where the fraud's going to happen on the mobile side. And frankly, if we go in and design a hyper-secure, really, really complex system, no one's going to bloody use it. I mean, 3D Secure is a perfect example of that. Fantastically secure for everybody, but everybody hates it. So,
sorry, is it fantastically secure to show someone an iframe where you can't even check which SSL certificate's on the back end of it?
It was when it was designed. It wasn't me, it was the previous life. When it was designed 10 years ago, whenever it came out. At the time, it was great, but yeah, it's moved on. But it serves a purpose. It was over-engineered, it was badly delivered, and the customer experience is horrendous. So you've got to find a compromise here. PayPal, with a username and password, you would think that isn't secure, and yes, we've had our phishing problems, and yes, we've worked on them, and to be honest, I think we've virtually solved them. But on the counter side, it's incredibly easy to buy something with PayPal. So you've got to balance those two. You've got to make sure it's easy for a consumer to use, and they will use it, versus being hyper secure, consumer's not going to get it. They're not going to really
What I
care.
was curious about was the question was about regulation, and so I'm just curious, has the regulatory environment held you back at all, or have you found it a perfectly good platform for...
So we've always treaded the line. It's probably the best way to put it. So we've always pushed it a bit, and we get it wrong sometimes. I think it's pretty noticeable. We had a bit of a problem in India recently, which we solved quite fast. But we've always been on the edge of what's right. Now, to be fair, one of the advantages we've got is we are doing an awful lot of business. I think the last Forrester said we're doing 30% of British e-commerce. So yes, we are doing a lot of money, and we can perhaps push boundaries where other people can't. I think there's some environments, and specifically South America is a good example, where the government is particularly unhappy with the banks, and to a degree the regulators. I think there's some places where actually a new payment type will be really welcome.
Yeah.
You look at, like for Brazil example, the average Visa card transaction rate there for a merchant is 8%. So as trying to do an e-commerce business in Brazil, forget it. I mean, 8% is going to go on your card transactions. So countries like that, the government's desperate for other people to come in and be an alternative to the banks.